Hello, it's Nicholas, Sparkles of Gold. Thought I'd do a quick video on my viewpoints when it comes to this Venus retrograde transit in Capricorn. Um, and the retrograde station, when it stopped, happened on December 19th, and it was at 26 degrees Capricorn, and was also conjunct planet Pluto at 27 degrees. This retrograde, which means review, the going backwards, it ends on January 29th of 2022. And once it stops going backwards and starts to move forwards, eventually it leaves the sign of Capricorn on March 6th of 2022. During this whole time, and some of this has already happened already, but Venus makes a series of three conjunctions with Pluto during this transit. One that happened on December 11th, one that has happened on December 25th. The final one happens on March 3rd, so further down the line towards the end. January 8th into 9th, there Venus is conjunct the sun, which is together with the sun, Cazimi. So think about rebirth in that sense. Venus comes into the sun and is burned down to its purities in the sense on those dates of the 8th and 9th of January. So you could see I'm starting to paint a little picture of just chapters to a story and other aspects in all this. So that sets up this review process and the narrative. So the actual retrograde cycle itself going back and forth is like 40 to 41 days. So I make the analogy of 40 days, 40 nights that you hear of going through the desert, the old biblical thing, and you hear it in other stories too. So I don't know. In my opinion, this transit, brings up key words like ambition and control, because those are two Capricorn type of words, and control in a sense too is a Pluto thing, because Pluto's involved in this retrograde with Venus. And because mentioning Pluto, the power dynamics and power struggles are also a big part of this. And these all kind of come to a place and funnel into a place of how one eventually sees and values themselves, because we're talking about Venus here in the end. And the other part of this, this can be reflected sometimes outside of you in all types of relationships, which in the end, self-reflect and mirror back to you. Because it's in the sign of Capricorn, I like to bring up some key concepts about Capricorn being the taskmaster and loving to build and work and to attain something or attain things. And with Venus being there in Capricorn, there's the feeling and notion of goals and that are attainable or that can be fulfilled and harmonized, but requires with Capricorn boundaries and, in a sense, conservative functioning and decision making. That is the underlying theme that can be a theme in this transit with Venus and Capricorn. Venus functioning in that way through Capricorn. So how does one process and review these things I'm talking about? And review, remember, is retrograde. Okay. First thing is you can look to the Capricorn part of your chart to start the story, to know where this is happening. I'll take this moment to say, if you don't know that and you're watching this, you'll see my info in the explanation here, and you can contact me and I can pull up your chart and I can tell you exactly where in your chart this is happening. So if you want that preciseness, what part of the chart is it? Your 10th house of career and how your public face? Is it the 7th house of your relationships and the other, so on and so forth? Wherever Capricorn is in your chart, this is where to look in the start. So that's where the reevaluation will take place. And remember, get this straight. It's a slow step-by-step process, and that's how Capricorn likes to run things. So give me a one way of looking at this on a very cerebral way of looking at it. So let's just say that you were to come up with a goal, and this is Capricorn thinking, and then you were to plan the steps to achieve the goal. Okay, some basic Capricorn stuff. And then first and foremost, though, you have to come up with a vision of what this goal is or what you want to attain. That's precise, in a sense, definitive vision, very clear. And then you could use this retrograde period of 40 days, 40 nights to understand of how you do this visioning process and where it is specifically in your chart. That whole thing is under reevaluation. So in a sense, this could be the way one has approached this goal and envisioning type of thing in the past to achieve those things. But in a sense, it's not functioning anymore. It used to function in the past, but it doesn't anymore. And in a Venus retrograde like this is about unearthing those things, those functions, and that cerebral step-by-step process I'm talking about. Now, taking what I just said, putting that off to the side, I want to get to what this really means in my viewpoint on this. And on the deepest level, this Venus transit, in the end, has to do with relationships. And what I consider, what one does with what I call false power. And this Venus transit with Pluto and Capricorn, in a sense, is going to want to unearth and reveal toxic dynamics that happen with this false power. So what is this false power? So in a sense, it's, first of all, I'll say it's a false power in a thing of one does not see or recognize stagnation in this narrative and story in relating to the specific part of your chart that's Capricorn. But in general, with relationships in general, there's things that we hold on to that we have used in the past that have worked in order to survive situations. So it gets to, I think, a place of what I call false power. One doesn't see or recognize certain things in that. And there's things that are habitual and certain functions that, again, worked in the past and they don't anymore when it comes to relationships and how they, in a sense, relate to yourself. So this power that I'm talking about is strong, actually, and it feels strong because it's functioned in the past, but is really based in wounding and pain. And the example I give is like one is in a underworld place, an underworld journey story, or some people could say purgatory, or some place where one doesn't realize something needs to be dead and let go of, metaphorically, death. And usually this power is an illusion, and one does not see what they're doing or what they're holding on to, and they're running over and over again on this false power because it's worked in the past, but really just creates an illusionary space. And that whole little something I'm talking about is, like, in my eyes, the final holding on and grasping in resistance to actually looking at one's own pain and suffering in relationships, their own personal pain and suffering with relationships. And that resistance is, on a deep subconscious level, does not want to let, like, in a sense, a metaphorical death happen, or want to walk through the fire, or want to see the toxicity of things and then to purge and let them go because of this feeling of having that this is powerful. So again, you could get clues on this, on relationship dynamics and toxic patterns that you hold or you see. And I'm not trying to fault all y'all, people watching this saying you suck in these certain areas, but I'm just being real about a Venus-Pluto transit and Venus retrograde transit, in a sense, in the Capricorn part of your chart, how you're relating to it, the relation thing and this false power. But in general, you can catch this in relationship dynamics. So, and I think when one's holding on there and doing that, it's easy to look at what's outside of them, of yourself, or let's say it's in a relationship, for example, and find fault in the other person, the other situation, the other thing that you're relating to. And in a sense, that's another way of resisting, and a way of deflecting the core part of one needing to let go of these toxic patterns. So saying all that, I think, and I know actually this, I feel this strongly about this, that because of the way I mentioned about goal building and a step-by-step process and stuff with Capricorn, I think if one were to use that and one is taking their time during this Venus retrograde, develop that step-by-step safe container to do this process, there is space and an opening for deep relating with yourself in a structured way, and also where you can get to a place of letting go and purging and then starting a new build and to create a new foundation with yourself. But let's say that relationships outside of you, and hopefully that relationship or that relationships, plural, they're on the same page with you doing the step-by-step process, and you're being honest with yourself and having to look at what you need to let go of. And in a sense, that person on the other side is too. But you can't control that part of it. You can't control the other person. You only have the power, the true power of eliminating the false power that I'm talking about. That is just blinding. It's a blind spot. So be patient with that type of movement and process with yourself, and let's say with the other. At the same time, I think it's important to look at oneself and go, hey, this power that before it turned into a false power did work for me in the past, and you have to thank yourself for finding something in a way to survive through past pain and suffering with relationships and the relationships with yourself, or trauma with yourself, the relating to yourself. And then once you acknowledge something like that, then to be as honest and real with yourself about how this false power just doesn't function anymore. If you're with me in this conversation, I don't want to be. I'm being kind of Saturnian with my talk and being very real about how one is to confront themselves and not project. And it's easy to project. We project on people all the time, But if one can really be real and see what you're doing with yourself and to yourself, and you need a place to stand in and to do this process, come from your heart. Because in the end, this is about love. We're talking about Venus here. It's about love, and it's the way you see yourself and how you love yourself. And these deep wounds and insecurities that are being unearthed, and in the end, just wanting to be healed. You want to be happy. You don't, on a deeper level, if you step out of yourself, you don't want to be holding on to something that is not working for you anymore, but in a sense did, and it feels empowering, and it surges, and you have to be real with that. But I think the way to do that is through your heart and through love in general. And to know that it's a long process, and that once you start to dismantle this false power and these dynamics within yourself, you could start to create space to plant something, for something to germinate, and for it to this goal and vision that I talked about, this definitive vision in the beginning of this video, to fulfill itself in the Capricorn part of your chart. And it's for you, if in your relationships in general. Remember, once we get out of this retrograde, Venus starts to move forward, and she's got a longer cycle. So there is a germination process thing here that happens, and you could see things reflected in the future and manifest in great ways. So take advantage of this review process, and in the end, use the Capricorn ambition to go within yourself and then do the process, but then to let go and let yourself be transformed. There is a surrendering process in this. If one were to walk through that fire, through that underworld, or get out of purgatory, however you want to look at it, there is a surrendering that has to happen, in my opinion. And remember, just use love and to have compassion for yourself, and compassion for those around you who stick by you and see you and hold space for you and know that about you, whether you see it or not, and stick with honesty and empathy for yourself and others. And hopefully you can come to a place of forgiveness for yourself, and maybe people outside of you can find that for themselves and for you too, but that's a hard one, and that requires real talk and a real safe, structured place to get past those things I talked about in the video. This is basic human stuff, man, about relating and love in the end. But it being in Capricorn, there's a slow, conservative process to doing it, and I think that's a good thing. And if you can get past the place of making decisions and reactions out of this like raw emotional places, and a lot of times those raw emotional places are that false power I've talked about is involved. And if you can kind of step out and find a different container to work through and be really straight up with yourself, and then you have the ability to be straight up with others or another person, and they're on that same tip with you, you can grow. And you can evolve. And that's my video for today. It's just kind of some thoughts I've had. It was thoughts I put out in a newsletter about a week ago. And I'm the type of astrologer, and I'm the type of person who believes in ritual and who believes in doing the work. And a lot of times doing that work requires brutal honesty, and honesty with temporary rule sets and situations, and it usually involves things that you don't want to do, or you're running away from, or you don't want to see. So those types of things, that's the hard stuff. But I think with a transit like this, and with Venus in the end, she wants to harmonize, and she's with Pluto, so I don't think there's any way out of this. And I think I'm one of these people too, who's very Plutonian, and likes to use my fear when it does come as my ambition to get through something, and to push through, and to, in a sense, metaphorically shed my skin in wherever area it is, right? And maybe you can look at it that way, that you're shedding your skin in that particular Capricorn part of your chart. And that takes courage, but and it doesn't have to be wild and out of sorts and out of place. Set up that plan and that goal structure, and be real with yourself. So I hope you enjoyed this chill video from my new spot. I'm moving in, and I'm going to create more of a studio and do more videos and book reviews. If you really like this video, if you made it this far, please hit the subscribe button, hit the thumbs up button. You know the drill. I'm trying to build something. Everybody's trying to build something on YouTube. So, and make a comment. And if you have any questions about any of this, I'll answer any question astrologically to the best of my ability. If you're interested in a reading, so on and so forth, you'll see all the info. You can go to my website. I really appreciate you listening and to my viewpoints on this, and transform yourself, will ya? I'll see you in the next video.